What's up, guys? Welcome back to another video with On Point Politics, your number one stop for all things polling and election analysis that is not beholden to any mainstream media source. Make sure to hit the like button and to subscribe for more content just like this. And today we're sitting down with Christobal. What's up, man?
What's up, my man? Thank you for having me.
No, of course. So go ahead and introduce yourself, and we'll kind of like go over and see why you got into politics and whatnot.
Yeah, so my name is Christobal Pinochet. I'm 25 years old. I live in Orlando, Lake Nona. I've been in the world of politics since 2018. That's when I really started. I'm very happy to be here because one of my biggest issues, especially this election, and I've done a couple other interviews and I talked about that, was freedom of speech. And I was blessed to find somebody like you who wants to have an impartial, be able to broadcast, right? Impartial view or way of things, and I think that that's what we need the most of. So I'm very, very thankful for this opportunity. Believe me, there's not a lot of places where you can have a conversation and it not be disturbed or canceled or censored if it doesn't align with the specific point of view. So I'm very happy that you're doing this, and I commend you for that.
Thank you, and I really appreciate it. Like the whole point of this, guys, like I really want to have a channel where really it is impartial media and both sides can express their opinions. So like we did the tabling the other day, and I interviewed people. One of them is voting for Jill Stein. One of them I think is going to vote for Harris.
Yeah.
But we all had conversations, and I think that's something that we're missing in our country quite a bit, is having like impartial like discussions with people and like really kind of coming, not necessarily like to agree on things, but like just have like a civil discourse, because I feel like that's what's making our country like really divided right now. And I think it's important to have those key topics. And what's happening, I think, is we have a country now where there's America first and there's not America first. And unfortunately, because of the mainstream media, we have people that are like brainwashed now and stuff like that, and they don't put the country first right now.
Yeah.
And so that's something that I think is really important that we have to address. And right now, you and me, we're working with college Republicans here at the University of Central Florida, and we're going to really try to turn this into something that's going to be really, really big. And so right now, I'm going to say, what got you interested in politics, and what's your main reason why you support President Trump?
So what got me interested in politics was, again, in 2018, right? It was the time of the midterms. I was living in Texas at that time. And there was a very interesting character who was making a lot of noise. His name was Beto.
Yes,
right?
This guy.
And he was running against, I believe in that moment, he was running for Senate.
Ted Cruz.
Against Ted Cruz. And so everybody was talking about, you have to vote for Beto. So I was like, okay. I was a soccer fanatic back then, more than I am now. For me, 99.99% of my life, the world, for me, revolved around soccer. So politics was never really something that I was into. My whole life, my whole focus was on soccer. So Beto comes around, the midterms come around, and everybody's talking about, and I start noticing that people who never had any interest in politics before, would never talk about politics, were now all of a sudden telling people to vote for Beto or to vote for Ted Cruz. So that got my attention. I was like, is it a seasonal thing that people get into every once in a while? And if it is, like, I think that for politics, for government, for a senator, for president, you should have some kind of background before telling people to get into, or before telling people who to vote for, in my opinion. So I found it weird that all of a sudden people were telling me to vote for somebody in such an important election like the Senate. And before that, they never talked to me about politics. I was like, okay, I need to do my own research on this. And at that time, obviously, President Trump was in office. So I was like, who's this Donald Trump guy, right? And I never had a full support for him, but I never really disliked him either.
Right.
I was just apolitical. For me, politics wasn't important. They told me that he was racist and that he didn't like Hispanics and Latinos, and that one of the biggest things that I still remember till this day was that they told me that when he got into office, he was going to ban soccer forever in the U.S. So I was that got my attention back in 2016. I was worried that he was gonna win because soccer was gonna get banned, and for me, soccer was everything. So I guess you could say I was victim of the fake news,
Right.
And so when fast forward a couple years, that never happened, right? Soccer
Right.
wasn't banned, so that kind of got my curiosity as to like, man, are the news telling us the truth? Are they exaggerating, which is normal, or are they fully just with an agenda of making this guy look bad, right? So I started to again doing my own research, and as the years have gone by, I've actually noticed that there's one common denominator with everybody who flipped from Democrat to Republican, and that is one single thing, and that is they took the research on their own hands.
And that's what happened to me, because I actually used to be very liberal. Like I used to be super like, oh, leave the LGBTQ people alone. Oh, we need free healthcare. Oh, I like Hillary Clinton. I like Joe Biden. I don't like Trump. He's racist. And my own mother actually was the one who told me in 2016 that I didn't even live with. She was like, oh, he's actually a racist. That's the reason why I started hating him. It wasn't because of even the own people in my own home. And funny enough, my parents are pretty apolitical. I mean, they voted for Obama because they thought he was cool. And my dad's favorite president's Bill Clinton. But really, like, they're sort of apolitical. So in 2020, I was seeing Trump like giving the press conferences like all the time. And I'm like, man, like, I don't like him. Like, oh, the COVID thing sucks. And it's like, there's people that may have not like disliked him, but they're like, damn, COVID's just terrible and it's happening with Trump, so let me vote against him. Right? But as I was kind of researching and looking at stuff and watching more clips of him and really researching, I was like, man, this guy's like not a racist at all. Because that was my big problem with him. Like, man, he's not a racist. And then like I would see like Joe Biden, I would look up stuff and I'm like, this guy's the actual racist right now. So I'm like, they completely just fooled me. I'm like, my own mom, the news, like everybody just kind of fooled me. And so that is true. Everybody that flips from Democrat to Republican, something happens that forces them to self-reflect, or they make an effort to research. And so that's kind of what. And then it's funny too, because a lot of the times like people say, oh, I have a problem with his humor. Most of the time, those type of people have his sense of humor or also really don't care either. It's just that they have the TDS. They have like the brain rot from TDS. So it like helps, it stops them from seeing like, what's really going on. And then once you kind of start listening to him and then you see the background of like how I don't really think he's a racist and all this stuff and how the news really isn't that trustworthy anymore, that's when you're like, okay, something's up here. So by the time the beginning of also, what's interesting is Joe Biden's also one of the reasons why I became Republican, because when they nominated him, I didn't know who he was. I'm like, who is this guy? Like, this is really who they put up to beat Trump? And you could say that Joe Biden did have some connection to like blue collar workers and stuff like that. So that's why he was able to win the election. But really, like by the time I got there, I was kind of more on the Trump side of things. And after like 2021, I was still like moderate, but as time went on, I kind of started becoming more hardline on certain issues. And that kind of happens to everybody, really. So that's kind of my side on like how I flipped from being a liberal to like a conservative. But so continue what you were saying.
And then you ended up with the MAGA hat.
Yes, the MAGA hat. Yeah,
good.
yeah.
So like I said, like and I'm glad that you agree with me. Like once you start doing the research on your own, if you look at it from an objective position, you don't have any other choice but to swing with President Trump, but to switch to the other side, right? And another thing that made me like really question a lot of the things was that Democrats love to talk about how America has a racist past or has a lot of bad things in its past, right? And President Trump was only in office for 4 years, right? We had Obama for 8 years. We've had Biden since 1973. So if there was ever somebody to blame, and the point that I'm trying to make is like, just like you said, like Joe Biden was the guy that the Democrats chose to go up against Trump, which is interesting because one of their favorite talking points is racism. And if you were alive in 2020, you remember that the biggest thing, I would say more than COVID, was Black Lives Matter and racism and police brutality and Donald Trump is racist and the KKK and this and that. It was racism. That was like their biggest
That
talking
was
point.
actually, yeah, in the Gallup polling, that was actually one of the biggest issues that came out.
So what's interesting to me, and you said it yourself, is that they fooled you. They fooled a lot of people
Yeah.
because Joe Biden was responsible of the 1994 crime bill.
Yeah.
He wrote that bill, right? Then it was passed by a Democrat, which were the Clintons, or which was Clinton at that time, right?
And can you go into the bill and explain like exactly what it is? Because a lot of people may not know. More people know now, but
Exactly, yeah. So what the 1994 crime bill was this, war on drugs and all this stuff. There was a spike in crime at that point. So it's understandable why you would have even Democrats and Republicans, agreeing on that something has to be done to stop crime at that time. So I will give them that. However, did they go overboard? They absolutely went overboard, right? And unfortunately enough, the biggest population that was affected by that were African Americans or Black Americans.
because everybody was rioting and destroying the businesses in Minneapolis.
Exactly.
And then after BLM, it swung left. It
Exactly.
became more Democrat after all of that.
Exactly.
So it's just insane how some of that stuff kind of went down.
Yeah, and so, but with the 1994 crime bill, the people who were mostly affected were Black Americans who were disproportionately put into prison, and then come around Donald Trump in 2019, December of 2018, and he passed the First Step Act,
Yes.
which freed not just random people, but specifically people who were affected by the 1994 crime bill.
Yep.
So Joe Biden can talk about beautiful things and he can say this, he can say that, He is also the person who opposed integration because he didn't want his kids to grow up in a racial jungle.
Yeah.
Right? He opposed busing and he was called out for that by Kamala Harris in the 2020 debates. He told, and you're like, oh, well, you're going back too far. Okay, fine. In 2020, he told Black people that if they didn't vote for him, they weren't Black.
Yeah, like.
Exactly, right?
Yeah,
so
it's ridiculous, yeah.
So it's like saying, just to give you some perspective into that, it's like if Donald Trump came and said, if you don't vote for me, you're not white.
Yeah,
that's how outrageous it would have been.
Yeah.
Right? It's like saying that.
Except the media wouldn't have cared because he was disparaging white people. And their
Exactly.
whole goal is to basically, I don't know what the media is. I don't know, there's some people that think that there's like this great replacement theory that it's like, oh, we're going to replace all white people or whatever. But I really think the media just has a big problem with certain demographics of white people, especially like disaffected men who are like class working voters. They've really pushed them to the side. And that's why Trump has gained so much with those people. Yeah. But I think that, they wouldn't have even cared if he said that, funny enough. Yeah. I actually think they wouldn't have even cared, which is the sad part. But either way.
So for me, the way that they brought Joe Biden as this hero against racism, many other things maybe, we can talk about that. But against racism, really, that's your guy who you're putting up to fight racism. The guy who called Robert Byrd a mentor and a friend. The guy who was defending two literally KKK, literally racist people, saying that they were good senators. Kamala Harris called them out for this also in the 2020 debates. So he said that Barack Obama, you finally found a well-spoken, right, like a well put together Black man or African man and African American man in the U.S. So like that's your guy that you're putting up against the man who had the lowest Black unemployment, who Black home ownership went up to 44%, or up 44%, or up to 44%. I'm not too sure, but I know that it went up. Black entrepreneurs were doing better.
Yes.
Black-owned businesses were doing better. Crime was going down. Something that sparked a lot of controversy was when President Trump in 2016 said, "What do you have to lose?" And what he was saying with that was, Democrats have already ruined your cities. Just look at Democrat-controlled cities, right? Do you really think that me as a president, Donald Trump, right? He's saying, me as a president, I can possibly do any worse than what you're already going through? You know what I'm saying?
Right, yeah.
So you're already doing awful. What do you have to lose by giving me a chance? And a lot of people did. and then we had the strongest economy. We had crime going down.
Yep.
We had black home ownership going up, black entrepreneurship going up. What's it called? And the country overall was doing good. And now another thing that I also don't like to do is get into like pandering either to black people or to white people or to any
group.
right?
But the truth is, every single demographic was doing better, period.
Exactly.
So for them to single him out on those things is kind of really facetious, in my opinion. And I honestly think that there was a plan by Jesus to have Donald Trump lose 2020, to have Biden come in and really show what Trump was talking about.
Okay.
And now people see it firsthand in the Democrat cities. And it was already a thing, because if you may not exactly know this, but I look at like, the election maps and things like that. But all the big cities, LA, Chicago, New York, Miami-Dade, all those places moved Republican in 2020. But no one talks about it because he lost. But all of those places shifted to the Republican Party in 2020 when things were arguably still bad, but not as bad as they are now. And so I think that's why he's going to have a chance at winning the popular vote. I have him winning the popular vote right now. But I think that things have just gotten so bad that it's going to really go out there. And I think he's going to, I think right now he's in a good spot to win. But overall, every single demographic was doing better when Trump was in office. Now, obviously, we have Biden, who was kicked out by whether it be Nancy Pelosi, whether it be Chuck Schumer, whether it be Kamala Harris herself or Obama. The whole point is that they tried making it seem like Biden stepped down for the good of the country, when we all know that's not true. It's very obvious. He was down 3-4 points nationally, and they told him, you need to get out of here. Like, it's like, really? And so my question is, what were your thoughts on like how they kind of just put Kamala Harris in there, and like why you don't like her as a candidate?
Yeah, so first, I think that it goes to show the Democrats have the Democrat politician. Now, I want to make this distinction very important. It's a very important distinction. I am openly against the Democrat establishment, Democrat Party, Democrat politicians. But I'm very sympathizing and very, I want to have conversations with, I want to help, because I was in their position at one point with the Democrat voter.
Yes.
Right? So the Democrat politician and the Democrat voter are two different people as far as I'm concerned, right? So now, about them putting Kamala Harris in, it goes to show that the Democrat politicians, the political class, has a really bad, and Kamala Harris herself said it the other day or some while back that, she was talking about young people, especially college-age people.
Yeah, and she said, they're so stupid.
They're very stupid.
They're very stupid. But not even in like a joking way.
Exactly. No, she was very serious about it.
She was super serious. She was like, this is why they have dormitories.
Exactly.
Like, it's like, really, dude? Yeah. Like, and now that I'm in college, it's like, dude, like, yes, people our age make stupid decisions. Right. But to say collectively that we're stupid is dumb, because a lot of us in dormitories, like, we don't live with our parents. We have to live independently, whether she doesn't realize that. But unfortunately, she grew up in Canada for the first 25 years of her life, and she went to Howard. So, I mean, just...
Oh, yeah, their disconnection, they're out of touch with everyday people is incredible, which is another point that we can get into with President Trump, of why he has so much momentum with everyday Americans. But as far as like them putting in Kamala Harris out of nowhere, it just goes to show how the political class thinks that they know what's best and they don't care about the Democrat voter. They've never cared about the Democrat voter. Black Lives Matter shows that just every single time. Like, for example, the fact that Kamala Harris, like, it's insane to me. When they were talking about Gavin Newsom running as a candidate, I was like, okay, you can try to get away with, I'm not included with the current administration. But the fact that Kamala Harris, the person who was sitting to the right of Joe Biden on every single important thing that they did,
which she said herself,
which she admitted herself, is the candidate. To me, it's mind-blowing that Democrat voters can truly sit there and think that she's going to be any different than the current president when she is part of the administration. To me, it's insane.
Right. And I think it's interesting because she has a lot of electoral flaws that people don't talk about. I mean, and it's not even to be racist, but Pennsylvania hasn't really elected any woman of color to state office. She is from California, which they don't really ever nominate people from California. I think the last person was Ronald Reagan, and he was a Republican candidate. So that's that too. She's a liberal from California, and a lot of people really actually don't like Californians overall. So that's also
that's a good
electorally point. That's another electoral flaw. She's got no biological children of her own. She has a child, but it's her new husband's daughter who she didn't raise. So she's really never had a family really, because she jumped in when she was in her 20s or whatever. So so she's got no family, and she really doesn't even have really a good sense of humor. I mean, Trump just went to the Al Smith dinner yesterday, and she pre-recorded some video, and she had to rely on some lady being funny for her in the video. She couldn't even tell a single joke in a pre-recorded video. Like, imagine that. And it's like, I feel like somebody that's in office that's going to do a good job, even if you don't agree with them, they have to have a sense of humor, because
Ronald Reagan had an amazing sense of humor.
Amazing sense of humor.
And he took down the Soviet Union with that. He was able to literally take down the biggest enemy of the world at that point, which was the Soviet Union, and because he had a tremendous sense of humor. What's it called? I was gonna say something. Another thing that's not very good is that Joe Biden said that he was, and there's video of this, especially when I think it was the debate between him and Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders.
Oh, okay.
He said that he was going to elect a black woman as his vice president. He said that. So I'm going to say something that a lot of people, I've gotten a lot of heat for saying this, but I say it very proudly.
Yeah, it's a DEI.
She is a DEI hire.
She is.
Now,
he said it herself. The short list for the 4 people who he was going to pick were all black women.
Yeah.
How can you tell me it's like people who say that, oh, you're wrong. I mean, it's like, well, maybe, but like not really, because he said it himself. His short list was all black women. And funny enough, he ended up picking the person that's not even black.
Exactly.
So that's the ironic part. His entire short list of 4 people, they were all actually African American women who were from this country, who were born here and raised here, and he didn't pick them. He picked the one that was raised in Canada with her Indian mother.
You expect from Joe Biden. That's so fitting for Joe Biden.
Yeah, like imagine, but no, it's like ironic. The entire shortlist, I kid you not, was like African American woman that would have been born here, that probably went to church in the Southern community or somewhere in the African American community here. But he happened to pick the Canadian woman that her dad may not even be half black. He may be like a quarter black. So she's really like 10%. So it's like, and I'm not even saying that to be like,
she was always Indian until it.
Yeah, but that's the thing, because if you look up the articles, because people are like, oh, but she was black. Yes, she technically is. But when you look up when she got elected to the Senate, it was specifically the first Indian American. She could have been the first African Indian American senator to have been elected. But it's like, well, if she's running as the first Indian American senator, why can't she do the same thing when she runs for VP? And it's like, even Candace Owens posted that video that it's like her grandmother in the photo with her is probably not even her actual grandma, and that her grandmother already died, because she had like the transcripts or like the death records and stuff like that. Her grandmother might already be dead, and she put some lady there that's not even her grandmother just to prove that she's somewhat African American, because it's the only black person in the entire like book in her family, which is crazy. So it's like, and I say that not to be like facetious, but it's more like for her to go out there, and for them that we are out there and say, oh, black people have to vote for her because she's black. It's like, dude, at least pick somebody that's like even half black. Like, why? And she doesn't even have the values of African Americans who were born here, because she was raised in Canada. And for Obama to go out there and tell young men, hey, the choice is super clear this year. You got to vote. It's like, really, dude? Like, and it's funny because he got a lot of reactions on social media. People who voted for him were like, bro, like, you're cooked right now. Like, low-key, you're washed up.
Yeah,
like,
the people have woken up. And the thing is, and it takes me back to the first point I made in the interview, is that I commend for somebody like you who wants to have open discussion with anybody across the board, which is great. Just to give a little side note, we requested it with the college Republicans. The college Republicans requested a debate with the college Democrats here in UCF, and they said no until after the election.
Interesting.
Now, how does that make any sense? I don't know. But people, again, the Democrats can only succeed in people's ignorance, in blindness, without people being properly informed, properly educated, and just overall, it's gotten so bad that now they don't even want you to not notice. It's not like they're trying to hide things from you, because since it's so out in the open that anybody can see the economy's ass, the world is not in peace. Joe Biden couldn't put two words together. So it's not even that they don't want you to notice that they're hiding it from you, but the next step was, okay, since we can't hide it anymore, we need to threaten them that we're going to cancel them, that we're going to do this, and we need to threaten them that they can't even speak out against it, that they can't call it out, you know. So I just would like to invite everybody to just say, have
a discussion.
Yeah, have a
civil
discussion.
debate.
But not only that, just like, look, I would even go as far as saying, the time for discussions. What more can we discuss? Really, think about it. What more can we discuss? The world is not safe. The economy is horrible. People are literally committing crimes. The Department of Justice came out recently.
And they had to revise the crimes up after the debate. After the debate. They used the same data to fact check Trump when he said crime was up. But it's funny because they had said a report that the big cities hadn't reported anything, because they know if they reported those, that's like where half the crime's coming from.
Exactly.
So it's kind of hilarious that they literally fact checked them live and said, nuh-uh, the crime isn't up. And then like 2 days later, they revised it up with the actual facts. It's so deceiving.
It is
very, very deceiving, and it's a shame. Yeah. I honestly think that Trump shouldn't have done the debate with Harris. Yeah. In my opinion, I think he should have said, "I debated the legitimate candidate who won the 14 million votes in the Democrat primary, where you like him or not, 14 million people went out there and they voted for the Democrat nominee, and it's Joe Biden, and I debated him, and he chose to drop out, so there's no more debates." And he should have just told her, unless we have an open form debate where there's one moderator, not even saying anything, just making sure that we both stay on track and we have timers or whatever, and that the voters ask us questions, which is how it should be, how Lincoln and Douglas in the 1950s and 60s had a town hall where literally it was Lincoln and Douglas, and they had voters around them, and they had one guy moderating it to make sure that nothing got out of control and no one attacked each other. And that's it. And the voters asked questions to both candidates. The candidates debated amongst each other. And the voters got to decide who was telling the truth and who was not.
Are you talking about Abraham Lincoln?
Yes.
So 1860s.
Yeah, 1860s. Yes, 1860s.
So, no, 100% I agree with that.
Unless they had a debate like that, he shouldn't have done it. Because he could have really upended the system and really said, I'm not doing a debate unless it's like this. And it's funny because I feel like she would have caved because now she's caving. Now she's going on Fox.
Yeah, we're going to get into that one.
Yeah, she's going on Fox now. So it's,
one of the things that I am critical of President Trump is, and the Republicans as a whole, is that they don't leverage the fact that the country's mad. The country's mad right now. So we have the space to not have to negotiate with Democrats. We could ask for the things, we could demand things now, because people have woken up all across the board: Hispanics, blacks, women, even the LGBT community.
I mean, he got 30% of them in 2020. A lot of people don't know that, but he actually got more votes with the LGBTQ community than he did with black voters. He actually got like triple the amount of votes with them, because everybody thinks that, and a lot of the LGBTQ people do, they all think that they're all a bunch of young, new Gen Z people, but there's not. There's a lot of people that are older that happen to be a part of that community, but they don't identify with this new corporatized version of that. Like with older people, that's their business. They don't tell nobody and it's whatever. Because that's how it used to be. But now it's pushed because corporations can make money off of it, which is really, really sad. And I think it's a disservice to people like that they have their own things and they're struggling with their own illnesses or whatever the case is, and you're profiting off those people, and you're basically telling them, okay, we give you a permission slip to keep going that route, because that's what it is. And I think it's just a shame that that's happening, because I don't even remember growing up with that. I don't.
Yeah, and I've actually had conversations with gay people, and for people from that community, and they say that that it's way out overdone.
No, yeah, people don't even. Even a lot of them don't even like the fact that it's been corporatized like that. A lot of them, even people in like their 20s, a lot of them are like, dude, really? Like, does it really have to be in movies?
Yeah, exactly.
People don't realize that.
Exactly.
There's a lot of people from that community that are also like, man, it's too overdone.
Yeah.
And then a lot of people like that are like, man, the economy sucks and this like that. I actually think, because he got 30% last time, according to the New York Times exit polling. The New York Times exit poll. So he probably got more than that, actually. He probably got, I would say, maybe 35. So if that's the case, it's possible he even gets in the 40s with them this time. We'll see what happens with that. But I think that and it's not going to have an electoral impact because there's such a small group. But it is interesting because there are a lot of people like that don't like that it's so overdone, or that it's in kids' movies now, or that it's being pushed by corporations to be everywhere. People, they don't like that.
And to that point, President Trump is actually the first president who's incoming president as a candidate who was pro
LGBTQ in 2016. There's literally a photo of him with LGBTQ.
So, and as a Christian person, and
he actually hasn't had any problems with those type of people. I mean, there's clips on The Apprentice.
Exactly, that's what I was going to bring up.
Yes, and not only that too. I mean, he was like saying good wishes for the people here in Orlando in 2016 that something happened here. So it's like, I mean, and even that too, I don't really think he's got an issue with them.
And so this is what I would tell people. Every single issue that you can bring up, I promise you that if you do your own research, you're going to realize that Donald Trump, unless you just have completely opposite views or extremely radical views, I would say, Donald Trump is the right person as far as those issues go.
Because it's not even because he wants to, because his vision for the Republican Party is not for it to be a conservative party. People get that misconstrued. He wants it to be a party of common sense, and he said that. But people don't understand that. Funny enough, he's actually more moderate than Biden or Kamala Harris, at least this year. He was more moderate. I mean, in 2020, his campaign wasn't run that well. His campaign told him don't like Bitcoin. He wrote a whole tweet saying how he doesn't like Bitcoin or crypto. That, like, there's a lot of stuff that his older campaign really stopped him from really pushing in 2020, and he was the incumbent in a bad political environment. So that didn't help him either, because when you're in that position, you don't get the right people around you. You just don't. So, and that's what's kind of happened to the Democrats now. The Democrats now have all these Gen X people, the millennials that were interning for Obama, and now they're the head people for Harris and Biden. And it's like, you see it because the way they do the ads, the way they have the Kamala HQ with the whole brat thing, it's like, really, you think some guy that voted Democrat for Bill Clinton and Obama is gonna look at that and has like a job and a family is gonna look at that and really take it as a serious candidate? Like, in the Fox News interview, she mentioned Donald Trump in the interview 56 times in a 25-minute interview. That literally means that she mentioned him like every other sentence, because she's not even talking the whole interview because Brett Baier has to ask her questions. So that literally means every other sentence she's bringing up Donald Trump.
Here in the college, when we're talking with people, when we're tabling and stuff, I tell them, give me a reason why you support Kamala Harris without mentioning Donald Trump. And they can't. They can't. So there could be a pile of poop, or there could be a donkey, or there could be a cow running for as the Democrat nominee,
And they would still vote
and
for
they would
them.
still vote for it as long as the candidate
Trump
is
is
Donald
Donald
Trump
Trump.
for the Republicans.
Right, and it's so
So-
funny too because then all these other Rhino people, or these like people that got bought out by the Harris people that are DeSantis fans or whatever, they're like, oh well, that wouldn't have happened to DeSantis, really? So you don't think that as the second they would have became the candidate, they would have made him look like the devil either?
Yeah.
And the thing with DeSantis is, yes, he's a good governor, but just at the presidential level, he's not electable because his abortion stance is just, he's cooked. Like, it just is. And with Trump, it makes perfect sense to have the states vote for their own abortion laws because when you do that, you actually allow, because their whole thing is, oh, well, everybody's got to have the right to kill their own child as they please. And what they say is, oh, yeah, they can have the right. But the argument with us is, well, there's states that you can literally abort your baby when it's born. And they're like, no, that doesn't happen. Even they try to say it doesn't happen because they even know that that's wrong and that doesn't even appeal to the average American.
Yeah.
But it's true. There are places that do that.
Yeah.
Now, it's not everywhere in the country, but there are places that do that. So when you have Roe v. Wade go back to the states, it actually makes it more democratic because now the people can actually vote for their own abortion laws. And if you have a problem with the law, you got to get out and you got to mobilize your voters. And there's a problem with both sides on that because then the people in the conservative states, the pro-abortion people are like, oh, well, and it's like, well, you could have gotten your people out. And then the conservative pro-life people that are like, oh my God, we lost it in Ohio. You should have done better. You should have gotten more people out.
Yeah. Yep.
You have to do a better job. And so now it's funny because the whole pro-life people that got bought out by the Democrats that are now shilling for Harris on Twitter, they're all like, oh, well, Trump's actually the worst candidate, worst president on abortion ever. Well, really? Because he actually gave you some negotiating leverage finally, and you don't want to do the work. You're too lazy to do the work.
That's a great point that you're making, the one that you just said right now, the doing the work. I think that abortion shouldn't be, and this is my personal opinion, you can't ask Donald Trump to be even more stricter on abortion if the people from the church, the people from the everyday American voters are not doing their part. And so if we go into abortion, if we go into the subject of abortion, according to, what's it called? Planned Parenthood, I think they said that only 2% of their abortions only like 0.5% of the or it's one of those two. Point is, let's just say less than 2% of the abortions are because of rape or incest or all these other things. Right? So that means that 98% or more of the abortions are just on-demand abortions.
Right.
Reckless sex, the woman or the guy or both don't want to be responsible of the child. That's what it is. It's reckless sex, and
funny
they want
enough,
to take off the
and
responsibility.
this is something that I've gotten for Richard Barris, the People's Pundit. He's like a really good pollster, and he's a friend of mine now. And what's very interesting is that he polled nationally who are the people that supported the most. And what's very interesting is it's not liberal women until the 9th month. It's liberal men that are the ones that are the people that are full up to the 9th month by a decent amount.
And remember, men can't have an opinion on abortion. Remember
Yeah.
that? Men can't have an opinion
Supposedly
on
not.
abortion, according to Democrats. It's look, Charlie Kirk says the only standards that Democrats have are double standards. You know, they don't have any standards. So their whole party is based on controversy, is based on hypocrisy, based on, you know, contradictions, meaning that they say one thing and they do another. They promote one thing, then they support another. So it's insane.
Right.
But as far as abortion goes, President Trump couldn't have done anything better with the tools that he had available than to give it back to the states. You know, give it back to the states, and then now, because here's the thing. Abortion is nothing more than a moral argument. It's not a political argument.
No, it's not.
It's nothing like that.
It's a
a moral argument. So if California is okay with killing babies, and that's what the people of California are doing or want to do, then we need to have a conversation with them about that, right? But President Trump with the tools that he has, with such a quiet church that there is in today's world, especially here in the U.S., which is going to get me into my next subject that I want to talk about. He can only do as much as he can do.
Right.
You know, and the best that he could have done at this point was give it back to the states. And if Texas and Florida want to have some of the strictest laws on abortion, then that's because they're doing that. And like you said, if Ohio loses on, you know, being a Republican state, but now having a very Democrat, very liberal stance on abortion, then that's also on them. You know, that's also on them. So the other thing that I wanted to say is, and it also got me a little bit of heat, is that I think that the Christian church, and I say this with a lot of pain in my heart, is a scam. As far as that, I go that deep. It's a scam. It's a pyramid scheme where the pastor and the board will only say things that are politically correct to bring in more members, and by bringing in more members, they bring in more money, because, you know, when they pass out the
Right.
offering things to people give. I'm talking about the Christian church, by the way.
Yes.
So the fact that you have, I believe the number was 51% Christians, 51% Christians who vote Republican.
And 49 are Democrat.
And 49 are voting Democrat. 49. So, you know, the election is going to be on November 5th. That's a Tuesday. On Sunday, so the Sunday before that, you're going to have these Christians crying their eyes out, you know, reading their Bible, praying, you know, worshiping, listening to their pastor preach on a Sunday. And then 2 days later, on Tuesday, are going to go and vote for Kamala Harris, you know? And so I think that the Democrat, what's it called? I think that the Christian church is not doing what it should be doing as far as government goes. You know, they say that separation of church and state, and we can get into that, which isn't even in the Constitution. It's nothing like that. You know, it's something that, you know, Thomas Jefferson has sent a letter to a Baptist church telling them that there was going to be separation of church and state, and that they shouldn't worry, because what is in the Constitution is that freedom of religion. That is in the Constitution. So separation of church and state came from a letter that Jefferson sent to a Baptist church, telling them that they had nothing to worry because the government isn't going to interfere in church affairs.
Right.
So it was it. So then Democrats have twisted it and used it against churches when it was meant to be used in favor of churches, because our country was founded in government and God, not government and God. You know,
Right.
It's government here and then God up here. That's the foundation of our country. So why it only makes sense that Democrats are against the church. It only makes sense that Democrats are against God, because that gives another form of authority which is above them. And what we know about the Democrats, not just the modern day Democrats, but the left in general throughout history, you know, through communism, through socialism, through Marxism, is that they are an atheist ideology,
Right.
because God poses a threat to them, because they want to be the supreme leaders. They want to be the ultimate authority in a country. So I get into a lot of arguments with Christians who say that Donald Trump, for some reason, apparently it's been being said that Donald Trump doesn't openly recognize God or openly say that he's Christian. Or
Actually, he's like one of the only presidents in recent history that has said Jesus Christ during speeches.
Exactly. And so he did it during his presidency. He did it even before his presidency. He's done it now. I'll just give you a couple of examples. He said, the direct quote was, "Our country needs a savior. And this was, I think, when he was running for re-election this time. He said, "Our country needs a savior." And then he said, "Our country has a savior, and it's not me, it's someone much higher up than me." And he was at a church, out of all places, when he said that. Another thing that he said was, he did say when he was a president, he said that somebody had told him that he was the most famous person in the world.
And he said,
"No, I'm not." And then they said, "Who is the most famous person in the world?" And he said, "Jesus Christ." You know, and then in that same speech he said, "Sometimes you need help from the boss," and he started pointing up, you know, to the sky. You know, he said, you need help from the boss, you need help from the boss. Just yesterday, he was at the Al Smith dinner.
Yeah.
You know, so like, where does this guy, and then people say, oh, it's because he wants to win political points. It's not politically beneficial.
No, it's not. It's not. And most of the times where he's talked about it hasn't even been during re-election or an election campaign. A lot of the times where he's talked about that stuff has been while he's president in off years, actually.
Exactly.
He's been mentioning it more now because he literally survived an assassination attempt by moving his head
That's
the exact way.
Yeah. And so, I mean, not, and to forget what he says. He's passed national prayer days. He's brought in pastors to pray for him at the what's it called, at the White House when he was there. During COVID, Democrats were perfectly okay with strip clubs being open, liquor stores being open. Costco and Walmart could function with all the little, you know, stickers of social distancing and stuff.
Yeah, but all that
churches
stuff, the churches couldn't.
And
but BLM could go out and protest.
Exactly. So
like, you're right.
So churches were forced to lock down because remember their favorite word was essential and non-essential, right? These are essential.
So apparently
people.
Churches were not essential, which is wrong.
So then, whereas President Trump said and advocated to protect those churches. Now, in Democrat cities like California, Minnesota, New York, Illinois, yes, you have those churches locked down because he said that he wanted the governors to take the lead on COVID. But then you can say Christian or conservative states like Texas, Florida, Tennessee, and you know other states like that where churches were restricted, but they were able to still function to the point where they were completely open for 100%.
Right.
You know, in Republican governments. So I was, we were talking, right, yesterday with Willie Montague.
Right, yeah.
And he said...
Who's running against Maxwell Frost.
Who doesn't want to debate, by the way.
Right, who doesn't want to debate.
Maxwell, you need to get out.
Yeah, and by the way, Maxwell, if you're seeing this, I already told Willie Montague that I would host an open forum online with both of you guys.
And I have a great update on that. We sent an email to the UCF College Democrat president to collaborate in hosting the debate because Frost was here 2 days ago, I believe.
Literally was just here. He was just here, posted up with the Vice President Brawley and President Lister, which are both good friends of mine. Yeah. They're very nice. Yeah. But dude was just here 2 days ago. They could have easily came here on the same day, did their own events, and had a forum afterwards, and everything could have been good. But he decided not to because apparently he's so busy. But yeah, he just stepped on campus right before he was supposed to come. Yeah. So Maxwell, if you're seeing this, we'll host the forum. We'll even bring in the college Democrats, so we have one Republican moderator and one Democrat moderator.
And so that's what I'm saying. We sent an email to the college Democrat president. I believe her name is Lauren, and we're waiting for their response. But Democrats don't want to talk. Democrats don't like to talk. I went up to on Wednesday of this week. I was the crazy guy that went up to them and said why they refused to debate, and their exact words were that they didn't think that debate was productive. That's what their words were. So Charlie Kirk, Donald Trump, and all these people say that when we stop talking, problems begin.
Yep.
So how?
But that happens everywhere. That happens in marriages, happens in friendships, happens all the time. So when the two big political forces stop talking, that's when problems occur.
Yeah. And so, when we were having our tabling here with the college Republicans,
it was in the beginning when I got there. This guy came up to the table, right?
Exactly.
And he was like, "Oh, I'm voting for Harris." And you asked him, "Why are you gonna vote for Kamala Harris?"
You see?
And he kept walking away.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So like they like to make their little 2 cents. They like to make their points, and then once you start digging into them, they have nothing to back it up with. So that's why they come up with creative ways of pretending why they don't want to debate their differences. I've messaged. And I have the proof on my phone. I've messaged countless Democrat accounts who have no problem speaking to their people, speaking to their audience, right? And they love to brainwash people and tell all these, they go through all their Democrat talking points. So if you have no problem doing that, then what's the problem with doing the same thing that you're doing, just that with somebody next to you who is holding you accountable and calling you out when you're wrong, which is what a debate is, right? And now this is what I found shocking. The college Democrats said that they didn't want to have a debate before the election, but they were okay with having one after the election. How does that make any sense? The whole point is that we should take it upon ourselves that, I'll put it to you this way. There are UCF students who are going to vote Republican.
Yeah.
Shouldn't
And a lot of them are going to say it.
Exactly. So shouldn't you want to stop them from making such a big mistake and vote Republican and bring them over to your side to vote Democrat? Because that's the way I see it,
But the problem is they take it for granted.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
the problem. They think that they believe that this is 9-1 Democrat when it's really not.
Yeah.
This campus is actually more 50-50. I would even say that this campus is majority conservative, albeit very slightly, but there's a lot of quiet people here.
Oh yeah, there's a lot. What Mary, our UCF college Republican president, she says it's a lot of closet Republicans. A lot of Republicans that are not. President Trump calls it the silent majority, even though thankfully he's been getting away from that message. I was very critical of that, saying it's so ridiculous to me to be silent when you're the majority and you're seeing how they're destroying the country. So thankfully he's not brought up that phrase anymore. He hasn't brought it up anymore, but we do see it here in UCF apparently, from what you're telling me, where there's a lot of conservatives, a lot of Republicans who are just silent. And to go into a little bit more details of that, what we want to do here with college Republicans, yourself included, and a lot of other people, is that we want to empower students. We want to win students over, because people say, "Oh, I don't want to convince you of changing your mind." Like, no, not me. I want to change your mind because you're being lied to. Like Candace Owens says, you're being lied to. You're being used. You're being abused. You're being taken advantage of. You're being fooled. Like we were talking earlier in the conversation, you're being fooled. And it would be one thing if it affected you, but you're affecting the rest of the country and you're affecting the world. What goes on in Washington, D.C., what goes on in the Oval Office, what goes on in Capitol Hill affects the rest of the world. And it's unacceptable as an immigrant for me to go to sleep at night thinking that, being okay with the fact that the decisions that my people are making here in my country, in my current country, negatively affect the people of my original country. So it's unfair. So I can't be silent. I can't just brush it off like so many people have. And that's why here with college Republicans, we want to empower students. We want to educate students. We want to win people over to the good side. And I will call it the good side. There really is a good and evil. A lot of people are saying that this is no longer Democrats versus Republicans. This is good versus evil. And so the thing that bothers me the most is that they had their 4 years. Like you were saying, Jesus, God, really, I do believe that allowed for Biden to come in, for the Democrats to come in and say, and have their 4 years, because it woke people up from both sides. It woke people up from both sides, and it made those who were already Trump supporters, who were already Republicans, but were like closet Republicans, come out more vocally, be more open. And also it won people from who were Democrats over to either the middle of the line or joining the Republican Party completely. So I said it at the time that I spoke at the meeting. I said there's never been a better time to be a Trump supporter. There's never been a better time to be a Republican than right now, because again, you have people on the Democrat side who are really just they can't come to terms with the fact that they've been wrong all these years. So they're just right there in the middle. And then you have people who have the humility enough, who are humble enough to flip over to the other side, But you very rarely are going to find those hardcore convinced that Democrats are the good guys. There's every day there's less and less of those people, which shows that we are making progress. The media is, despite their enormous control on what gets to be put out there or not, is not overcoming the fact that people are in fact switching over. So I think that's great.
No, I think it is too. But we hit a lot of topics. We talked about quite a bit, guys. Make sure to get out and vote early. Early voting in Orlando starts next week on the 21st. I'll be voting on the 22nd because I won't be here on the 21st. There's an event that Jacob Giron in Miami at the university, I believe it's Florida International University, is actually hosting an event with Laura Loomer, Ryan Fournier, Alex Stein. So again, that'll be happening and I'm actually attending that. So I'll be there on Monday. And I'm very excited to be working with college Republicans and, we're going to be working on things and it'll be really fun and it'll be good.
UCF great again.
Yep. So, all right, man. Thanks.
Thank you, my man.
No, I appreciate it.